This is a presentation for Doctoral Research and Writing, Class RSH 900, Assignment Module 6, as presented by Robert Bellamy. This presentation outlines relevant questions relating to research ethics, subjects, institutional protections for research subjects, as well as identifying sample sizes, strategies, research instrument use, and methods related to doctoral research. The first and foremost question to any research project should be the one key question: should the research be performed? The inability to answer this question, yes, negates the need to extend investigation into any more depth, and any ongoing questions related to the research project are irrelevant. What type of research should be performed? How should I approach my research? What sort of methodology should I utilize? What subjects will be included in this research? Do I need to include subjects? What type of subjects do I require for this research? If I'm including living subjects, how are the subjects protected in my research? What regulations and documentation am I required to maintain in order to show due diligence and due care in the protection of my subjects? How do I get an appropriate sample size? What types of samples do I need to gather? What size samples fit into my research focus? Should the research be performed? The overall question about the necessity and actual validity of the research is the first and primary overarching question when it comes to a research study. According to Christensen, you should now be prepared to make a clear and exact statement of the specific problem to be investigated. If the problem to be researched cannot be condensed into a clear and exact statement, the subsequent questions about the moral and ethical efficacy of the study become moot points. In pursuing this, can an appropriate hypothesis be proposed? If we define the hypothesis as a process by which an investigator formulates a hypothesis to explain some phenomena that has been observed and then compares that hypothesis with the facts, according to Christensen, then we define an appropriate hypothesis as one that can be proven or disproven using facts garnered through research. If the hypothesis cannot be imposed in terms of a specific question or proposition, then there is no ethical way to prove or disprove the research either in terms of an ethically validated answer, as defined by either proving or disproving a hypothesis, or in the converse, disproving a null hypothesis. The inability to legitimately prove the answer using research data would make the entire exercise both an unreliable source for future research data, and it would be a waste of time for the researcher. The key points come down to feasibility and specificity. Next task would be, can the research provide benefit? Even if the research is extremely specific, and even if the valid hypothesis or null hypothesis on which the focus of the research can be presented, the question will still arise. Asking a question has the benefit of presenting the problem directly, thereby minimizing interpretation and distortion. But more importantly, considering the benefits of the research can help identify if the research has a use before allocating research time, money, and energy in the pursuit of that research. If there is benefit to the research, what are those benefits? Can the research lead to further research? Can it be used to do other research projects? Does the research have a practical benefit that can lead to a technological or social innovation? Are there any practical benefits? Can the benefits from my research lead to actionable changes that may prove beneficial? The ability to identify the ethical validity and practical validity of the research are the keys to the first ethical question that we answered, which was, should the research be performed? The next question, what type of research should be performed? Experimental or non-experimental research? Experimental research will indicate that there must be a subject of some type. Non-experimental research could utilize data in correlation or natural manipulation studies that do not involve introducing the factor of an independent variable. Specifically, in experimental or non-experimental research, is there an independent variable involved? If there is, then that would be experimental research. If there is not, it would be non-experimental research. Types of non-experimental research could include data correlation and data collection, natural manipulation, also known as observation through non-experimentation. The use of non-experimental research can still involve the use of subjects. In these cases, the subjects are observed, but are still participants in the study and may be subject to research tools. As such, they still require the same protections as experimental research subjects. What subjects will be included in this research? I need to ask myself what subjects are required for my research. Do I require animal subjects? Do I require human subjects? Do I require subjects that would require oversight from an institutional review board? Such subjects would include those with mental incapacities, those who are children, prisoners who don't have complete autonomy or control over their environment, pregnant mothers with their unborn children. These are special case subjects that require special ethical review and identification before use in research. These subjects require special protections, and in the inclusion of those special protections, oversight is a necessity. I need to ask myself, does my experiment absolutely require the participation of subjects? Can I get better or equivalent data with correlational research? Can I perform the same research and answer the same questions without the inclusion of subjects? What data do I intend to gather from my subjects' participation? What data is required from my subjects? The next question is, how are subjects going to be protected in my research? I need to follow institutional guidelines and training. The protection of subjects in research is a matter of not only ethical requirement, but in many cases, it drives regulations tied to funding, as well as ensuring that research subjects are treated in accordance with federal regulations and expectations. And those are usually built upon such frameworks such as the Bellamy Report of 1974. Educational institutions that back research will have institutional boards or groups that assure compliance with regulations. This includes institutional review boards or IRBs, research ethics boards or REBs, independent ethics committees, IECs. Many institutions that rely on APA guidelines for ethical animal research when dealing with animal subjects in research. The APA is a pretty much accepted standard amongst many institutions. Another aspect is protecting human subject research data in law and in practice. Certificates of confidentiality allow for the protection of human subject research data in law and practice. It's a training course offered by the National Institute of Health, and they offer the online training to ensure that researchers understand the requirements and regulations of protection of research subjects and data related to their participation in studies. Protecting human research subject and data in law and practice includes the use of certificates of confidentiality according to CDC policy. Protecting human subject research data in law and practice involves ensuring that the research data of subjects maintains protection for identities and for specific attributes related to those individuals. What types of consent are required for research subjects? There are two types of research according to Christensen, the first being active consent. Active consent consists of consent of a participant in a research study via verbal agreement and signed consent. The other form is a passive consent, i.e. the opt-out type of consent, where consent is implied by non-return of a consent opt-out form. The form is sent out, and if you don't want to be included, include it back. While ethical questions have been raised in regards to passive consent, the difficulties in getting legitimate sample sizes with active participants, especially in areas of lower economic strata or lower participation areas, is considered an acceptable format in some studies. What are the appropriate sample sizes to utilize in a research study? The first type amongst the two types, random and non-random sampling, is found in random sampling. A simple random sample is one in which each member of the population is equally likely to be chosen as part of the sample number. Everyone has an equal chance to occur. The next type is a stratified sampling, when partitioning groups into strata or subgroups based upon a specific influencing variable. The subjects or the groups are individual strata or stratum are used to identify sampling pools. Proportional or disproportional stratified sampling involves a stratified sampling in which the stratum ratio either matches proportional or doesn't match disproportional the entire sample group inclusive of the strata along terms of the specific trait that is being stratified. For example, if I have 60% women as my sample pool, and my stratified sampling, if it was proportional, would also ensure that I had 60% women, or disproportional would not ensure that I have 60% women and could be perhaps 40 or 70%. Cluster random sampling involves breaking the entire population into logical clusters and then picking random clusters from those predefined sets of cluster samples. Systematic sampling involves a progression through a master list of possible sample members, such as by taking every nth member or every kth member, for example, every sixth person, and progressing it through the entire list until I've reached a suitable sample size, or until a full population count is selected. In non-random sampling, one of the techniques is convenience sampling. Convenience sampling is a simple method of sampling from individuals who are relatively easy to reach by proximity or contact. Quota sampling. It's a non-random technique where the sample has a predefined portion of individuals as set with the entire population in respect to a specific set of characteristics or traits. And then purposive sampling is a non-random sample where members are based upon the characteristics of a population, and those characteristics are relevant to the study or to the purpose of the study. And then snowball sampling. Likened to a snowball rolling downhill, it relies on existing subjects and participants in the sample to recruit new members for the study. And finally, the sample size calculator is a formula whereupon, based upon n, or a given size population, that it will identify the number of minimum sample for statistical purposes required to create a valid number of subjects for the study. What research instruments should I use? Research instruments are measurement devices. They are used to measure constructs or model numerical values that represent real-life traits or attributes. Research instruments represent a type of reliability. There are 4 types of reliability an instrument can represent. The test-retest reliability represents the ability of an instrument to measure a construct consistently over time. The equivalent forms reliability is the ability of an instrument to maintain consistency of scores obtained by 2 equivalent instruments designed to measure the same construct. The internal consistency reliability trait refers to the consistency that an instrument measures the single construct. Do instruments designed to measure the same construct arrive at similar scores? And finally, inter-rater reliability. Its ability of rating individuals to agree in the rating of similar constructs? Do multiple people judging a construct arrive at the same logical score? In conclusion, the ethical considerations in research is that research should conform to ethical considerations. Research should be feasible and useful. Research results should be quantifiable and clear. Research instruments should be appropriate. Subjects of research should be treated ethically and humanely. Researchers should protect their research subjects. Thank you for your time and attention.